So a lot of games came out this year. We got Tears of the Kingdom, sequel to Breath of the Wild. We got Spider-Man 2, sequel to Spider-Man PS4. We got Pikmin 4, which a lot of people weren't expecting. And we even got a Cyberpunk DLC that was so massive, it was like a new game all on its own. But we're not talking about any of those games. I want to talk about Sea of Stars. This little gem was on my Steam recommended page, and I saw it and thought, I'll buy it, maybe I'll play it later, as anyone with a Steam library should know. And a day later, maybe 2 days, a friend of mine DMs me and is like, hey, try Sea of Stars. It's really good. I just finished 100%ing it. And I thought, well, I trust his friend's opinion. He's got good taste. So I decided to boot it up and start streaming it. And oh my god, this game is so much fun. It's so wonderful, and not enough people are talking about it. So I thought I would talk about it with you, and I could share all my thoughts, my opinions, any sort of advice I might have if you guys want it. And so let's get into it. Let's just talk about it. It is a game. The thing we should start with is gameplay. So, Sea of Stars is a retro-inspired turn-based RPG. And like all RPGs of the past, you have melee attacks, range attacks, spells, and items you can use to defeat monsters to progress through the story and the world that the story takes place in. And like one of my favorite RPGs of all time, it has timed hits and timed blocks to increase damage dealt and reduce damage received. Although, this game does have a few unique mechanics that separate it from older RPGs, giving it this nice, distinct flavor that keeps it from feeling just like a rehash of an old game. The first unique mechanic that it has is normally when you're playing an RPG, you're walking around the world, you step into a monster, and it goes into this quick loading screen, and then you load up, and you're on one side, and the enemies are on the other side. And then you take your turns attacking and defending. Well, this game, with modern technology, as soon as you touch an enemy or an enemy touches you, instead of loading into a game, all the players and enemies, all the units, just jump somewhere on the screen, and the battle starts immediately. They won't always be in the same place. Sometimes you'll be on the left, they'll be on the right. Sometimes you'll be on the right, they'll be on the left. Sometimes they'll be above, you'll be below. A few times, you'll be in the center, and the enemies will be around you. And it's very unique. However, it does have a few problems. Like, when I was talking about the timed hits and blocks, when it comes to melee attacks, it's pretty easy for those because they have to get right next to you so you know who they're going to be hitting, or you know who you're going to be hitting at every chance. But sometimes if they have like a range attack, it's kind of hard to tell who they're aiming for. Like, there's this one enemy that I remember has this attack where it shoots a blast out and then the blast curves down and then hits from the bottom. And because it was at a different angle than it normally was that I was used to, what happened is the attack would go down and it would come up and it would touch the border of one of my characters, so I thought it was hitting that one. I would try to block it, but it's actually hitting the one next to that character, and so I would fail the block and get hit, and it would kind of put me in a bad position. So I don't really love this. It was unique and it was interesting, but it did cause me a couple of problems a few times, but it was never to the point where it was so bad it made me want to rage quit the game. So overall, I liked it, but I would have preferred them be more consistent when the enemies get replaced. The second way this game feels unique is with the enemy lock system. At some point during the fight, enemies will go into a special stance, and a set of symbols will appear above their head, along with a number at the bottom corner of those symbols. That number will indicate how many turns until they use a special attack separate from their normal attacks. And this special attack can either do a lot of damage, it can heal one of their allies, or it can give a shield to another enemy. And the symbols above them are the type of attack that you need to do to break the lock. So, for instance, if it shows a sword and a sun, then what you need to do is attack with character Zale, who uses slashing attacks. That's what the sword stands for. And since he has sun powers, if you use another one of their mechanics, it can give him sun energy. And if you attack and time the hit right, it'll hit with the sword twice, and it'll count as hitting once with the sun energy, ending the block. And when you break the lock, it'll stun the enemy, not only ending their special attack, but it'll give you some extra turns to give them some free hits in. And I really like this one. It did a good job of feeling unique while also adding a little bit of a puzzle to every encounter. And as you got later into the game, those puzzles became harder and harder to solve, but not so hard to where it's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, and more like, okay, I got a plan for there to be a difficult puzzle instead of using up your resources too quickly. And it makes you think more ahead, and it helps keep the fights from feeling too tedious and adds a decent challenge at the same time. The third system that made it feel unique from turn-based RPGs was the combo meter. So every time you perform any sort of battle action like attacking, timing hits to attack, timing blocks to defend, and other stuff, it'll build up this combo meter, which can hold up to 3 maximum charges. And each combo uses up 1, 2, or 3 combo charges. And these can be really powerful attacks or a special healing move that can help you in the pinch of battle. And they're really useful. And these combos are even more unique, more than the fact that they're just like a really powerful attack, but these combos use 2 specific characters to do 2 specific hits. Like it could be the main 2, which do slashing and blunt, and sometimes there will be a lock that requires you to hit twice with both within 1 turn. Well, if you have 1 combo point, you can use that combo point to do the first combo you get, which is called Solstice Strike, and then you use both your characters, and if you time the block correctly, they'll each hit twice, counting as hitting with slashing twice and blunt twice, therefore breaking the lock. And so it feeds into itself into these 2 mechanics really easily, and I think it's really smart because not only does it help mesh both mechanics, but it adds another resource you have to think about building up and when to use it strategically, kind of like how you use mana or items in most games, which they have in this game. So now you have 3 resources you gotta learn when to use at the right times to help you finish this battle in the most optimal way. And the final unique mechanic in this game is one that you don't get until you get through the first part of the story, and it's called live mana. So what happens is every time you do a melee attack on an enemy, they'll drop these orbs. And then if you hold a button, those orbs will form into a stronger glowing orb that will glow a specific color based on the character you're currently selected at, special technique. So like if you're using Zale, who is the Sun Warrior, it'll turn a golden sun color and he'll absorb it and get sun damage added to his attacks. If you're on Valerie, who is the Lunar Warrior, it'll turn this bright blue and she'll absorb it and it'll give her this extra moon energy for her attacks. And these are another resource that you have to think about using correctly and how to build up, because you can only have 3 of them on the battlefield at a time. So if you have one of each of your companions hit an enemy or 3 different enemies one time, it'll leave 3 orbs. And if you hit a 4th one, it won't get a 4th orb. So you have to think, do I want to use up one of the orbs or save them in case there's a lock combination coming up and I need to use each of those orbs once per turn to break a lock, so I can continue this fight while taking minimal damage, or stopping an enemy from healing, which is really annoying when you're in a boss fight. And I can say I really liked this live mana. It was really fun. In the early game, it just gives you this power boost, and it's just fun to just like, oh, I got a powered up attack. And then once you get to the mid game, enemies start having more lock combos where you need to use your live mana to break it, and it really makes you kind of shift the way you think about playing the game. Instead of just like, oh, get tons of damage or get tons of healing, you got to focus on things like, okay, this guy has this lock combo, so I need to try and build up or save my live mana so I can use it to break his lock before he hits me and wipes out my team, or he heals up all the damage I've just dealt to him. And again, it feeds into the other mechanics in this game. And I think the fact that they made these 3 distinct mechanics, but they all feed into each other and the base gameplay so well that it just makes this newer experience. It's like when you're baking a cake. You know, you got all the ingredients. Each ingredient by itself can make an interesting thing. But when you mix them together, you get this nice, delicious cake. And everybody enjoys that. I really enjoyed it myself. So I think this was a really great sort of addition to the turn-based RPG system as a whole. And it really also helps emphasize the next thing I want to talk about, exploration in minigames. Exploration in this game is extremely rewarding. There are so many things you can find in this game as collectibles. There's like your typical weapon upgrades, armor upgrades, food items that you can use to heal. You can also craft and create food items. You can find food item recipes for better meals later in the game that help you a lot more. You can find music sheets that you can give to the band in every tavern that will now play whatever song from the track that you have found, if you like in a lot of games. And I really like that. There was one collectible that I thought was kind of pointless, but it was nice for a little extra side gig. And there are a few collectibles here and there that you only use for 1, maybe 2 side quests. But overall, I think it's fine because those side quests were all pretty cute and neat, and they were never really like that pointless or annoying. And I like them because they usually built out the world more, expanded the story of the game, so they never bothered me. They did have these question packs that I didn't like as a collectible. At first I was getting them like, oh, I really wonder what I'm going to use these for. When am I going to use these? Am I going to get like some special item for it? And when I finally figured out what the question packs are for, and I finally finished all the question packs, besides getting an achievement, all it gives you is ores and diamonds and stuff. And those are only useful for selling to make money to buy things. And at that point, I already had a bunch of money, so it was literally just a waste of money for me. It didn't really do anything, but it was interesting, I guess. It was fine. I kind of liked it. It was like this quiz show that you end up doing in the game that tests you on knowledge of in-game events. There's 2 other collectibles that were pretty unique to this game. One of them were these things called rainbow conches, where you'll see these unique chests and you'll immediately want to go open it because it looks different than the other chests, and you'll find a rainbow conch. And throughout the first third of the game, you'll be like, what is this? What is this for? I don't get it. What am I supposed to be using these for? It must be something really nice. And when you find out what it is, personally, I found it really nice. It applies to a part in the game that I don't want to spoil for you yet, but it does help build out this one part that was really cool and I liked. And I thought it was a cute collectible, and they were mostly easy to find. There were a few here and there that I didn't find right away that I thought I'd look up a guide just to find. And I realized when I was looking at the guide, oh, that was so obvious. I should have seen that. So it was really nice that none of them were really difficult, like just pointlessly hidden behind a wall that you would never notice most of the time. Maybe a handful of them, but it was fine. It was never more than like 2 or 3 were like that. And so I really liked the rainbow conch idea and the way they implemented it. And it felt rewarding to find them. It never felt like, oh, I gotta find like 100 more of these things. I think there's only like 70 in total in the game, and I found like 50 something of them just playing without even trying to look for them. I would just see the chest and be like, oh, I gotta get that. And some of them you do have to like figure out, okay, I see that, how do I get there? And it does make you try and figure out how to get to the chest, but most of them you can just see. It's not hard to get to them. It's just if you want to put in the effort to do that. Some of them, it'll be like hidden behind a wall, and if you look at the top corner of the wall, you'll see a section of the chest, and if you see that, you'll go, no, oh, I should go down there and get it. And you might not your first time, which is fine. You might miss it like I did on a couple of them. But almost all of them are easy to get, or they're difficult to get, but they have a small puzzle that you have to figure out, okay, how do I get to that spot? But none of them were like, God, this was so annoying to find this one. Not from what I can remember. And so that was one of the reasons why all the collectibles are really unique. There's another collectible that is really unique to this game called relics. And the reason they're unique is because most RPGs don't have a settings mode. They just have the basic RPG, and you either are able to finish it and it's easy, or it's hard, or it's difficult based on how good you are at video games. There are more games now that have an easy, normal, and difficult setting to them, but this one doesn't. And they add in relics, which can actually make the game easier or harder. Like there's one that heals your team and gives them back all their MP at the end of every fight. And you can choose to buy that and then turn it on or off. I never had it on because I never even bought it because I didn't want the game to be that easy. There are also hard ones like the one for finishing one of the achievements, which leaves you at 25% of your max HP. Enemies can deal more damage, but you also deal more damage if you time the hits correctly, and you take way significant damage if you time your blocks correctly. So that one is really for making it a hard mode and to get you to prove that you actually understand timing and the mechanics of the game to finish the game. So I kind of like that. I like that they have an optional easy and hard mode, and it can vary depending on how many of the relics you own and have turned on or off, and it can really change up how the game is played. And I kind of thought those were really unique and nice, and it was fun to search for them because not only does it give you, again, the different difficulty settings, it also is just kind of cool. I like the idea of relics being able to turn on and tweaking a setting here or there, like tweaking how much HP you have, or MP, or how much damage enemies take, how much damage you take, and things like that. And part of exploring this game is playing the game Wheels. Now, I won't go too in-depth on the game Wheels because it is a whole game by itself, and I could make a whole video about that. By the way, if you're listening, Sabotage, or anybody out there, can you please make a PvP version of Wheels that I can play online against people? Because I really enjoyed it. That was by far one of my favorite things of this game. So if anybody could do that, please make Wheels online. Playing Wheels was really fun. It was a nice little mini game, and it felt like a game that people would play in real life if someone had come up with this kind of game. And it was cute. It does have a unique collectible connected to it, but all the stuff you get from Wheels, I'm going to tell you now, only helps you with playing Wheels. It doesn't help you with the main game at all. So if you hate Wheels and you want to just avoid it, go right ahead. The only reason you need to play Wheels is if you want 100% the game. That's the only reason you need to play Wheels. If you don't want 100% the game, ignore Wheels completely if you hate it. If you like it, play it. It's fun. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed getting better wheels to make the game easier for me, and then getting new pieces to change up my strategy. and just feeding into that over and over until you get to the last wheels player. And it wasn't a difficult one at that point because when you get to the last one, you have all the best stuff. And so the game is a little easy at that point. Whereas in the beginning, it's a lot harder because you don't have any of the good wheels things. But it was fun nonetheless, and I really enjoyed it. And again, I would like to play wheels in the real world against my friends or against other people. You might be looking at me and thinking, why does wheels matter so much to you? I don't know. I just like the way it looked and felt and sounded. Speaking of things that look and sound great, let's talk about the graphics and music. As you can already tell, this game is made with pixel art, and I have a huge respect for pixel art. Not just because trying to create art out of little pixels to my brain is like trying to defuse a bomb with tweezers, but it's also just like so beautiful. Not just when it's a still image, but when it's animated, when it's animated well. Also, it is so beautifully connected, and it just feels like every part fits perfectly. And to go with that, the settings in this place look beautiful. The way they do the oceans, the forests, the caves, all of it. So great, so beautiful. I loved looking at this game the whole time I was playing it, which is great because it's a video game. So you want to be able to look at it. And also hearing it was great. The music that went with every score, all the sound effects that went with every action you did just came out so perfect. Like whether you're traveling in the ocean or in a tavern playing a little board game or fighting a gorilla flesh monster created by a man who has the powers of the gods. Yeah, that's literally what's happening in this game. And to explain it more further, we're now going to go into the world and story. So this next part is going to go a little bit into spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled by anything in this world or in the story of this game, then click this time link and you'll move on to the next part. But if you're willing to dive right in, follow me into the story of the Sea of Stars. So we find ourselves in a world where two great people have found immortality. One calls himself the Great Alchemist, and the other calls himself the Fleshmancer. The Great Alchemist wants to spend his time studying magic and technology to further his understandings of alchemy and to create new spells and powers and items, whereas the Fleshmancer found immortality boring and decided to warp the very nature of people and creatures into these grotesque, eldritch-like horrors that would infest all the different worlds. And these eldritch-like creatures he created, he called dwellers, and if they became strong enough, they would become world eaters, and they would travel the Sea of Stars and, well, eat worlds. Literally eat them. That's how big they would become and how dangerous. And the Great Alchemist did not like this. He wanted to try and find a way to stop the Fleshmancer, but he couldn't. He couldn't find any way to destroy these dwellers. They were too strong, too versatile. However, he did realize they were weaker during an eclipse, a solar or a lunar eclipse. So he created beings of his own, humans who had the power of the sun and the moon imbued in them at birth. He called them solstice warriors, and he spread them throughout the worlds, and he would have there be organizations of solstice warriors, and they would go out and defeat the dwellers. However, if they would lose to the dwellers, then the dwellers would become world eaters, and that world would be lost forever to the Fleshmancer. However, on the other side of the coin, if the solstice warriors became powerful enough, they would cleanse their world of dwellers and become heroes who would travel the Sea of Stars, killing world eaters one by one to save countless worlds. And that's more or less the story that you start out as. You start as two of these solstice warriors. And I guess this is a good time to start talking about characters. So, when you boot up the game, you get to pick either to play as Zale, the Solar Blade Dancer, or Valerie, the Lunar Monk. Pretty obvious who has what powers. Picking them doesn't matter, the game even tells you this as soon as you start. They also have a best friend named Garl who has no powers. He's just a regular guy, but he's really good at cooking. And they have this really cute friendship, and your main characters just feel kind of like your main characters. They feel like your hero characters. They have personalities, but not quite so much to where they kind of push out of the boundaries of the main character trope, if you know what I mean. But they're also not boring. I really enjoyed their characters and how they felt about other characters and events happening in the world, and how they even have a bit of struggles at times considering what is the best course of action. And I think that's what really helped me with the main characters. And every other character was really great too. And there was never really a character that I saw in the game and was like, oh, character's so boring. Why do I have to listen to them yap, yap, yap? Every character was interesting, and they always had their own story that I was interested to see develop and push further and build up. As any typical RPG, as you get further into it, you add more companions to your group, which give you more powers and gives more skills that you need to learn, which really helps with the puzzle aspects I talked about earlier. And I liked all the new characters they added. At first I thought like, oh, I already knew everything about one character, and then it turned out later I was like, what? there was more to this character I didn't know. It literally blew me out of nowhere. When I played it with my chat, we were like, I had no idea that was coming. It was like, it was such a big surprise, which is funny because it came right after a very obvious thing. There was a character who had a certain thing happen to him that I literally called out first 30 minutes into the game, like, oh, this character is gonna have this happen to them. I knew it. And when it happened, I was still sad that it happened, but I was like, I knew this was gonna happen. I'm not surprised. And then literally 30 minutes later, the game threw a complete curveball into my face. And I was just like, I didn't see that coming. This was amazing. And it was what really cemented that this was a really well-told story with great characters that was just so much fun. And I am so glad to have played it with these characters. And like I said, they're all great. Even the minor characters in the background, even the enemies are kind of fun to learn about and play against. And I want to know more about this world and this universe. But I also hope that this studio makes whatever they want to make next, and it's even half as good as this. It doesn't have to be this type of game either. I'm very interested to see what they do. Now, I didn't make this video to convince you to play it. I think Sea of Stars is fantastic. I think it's probably the best game I've played this year. It really is that great. And while it's competing with stuff like Baldur's Gate 3, which was also fan-freaking-tastic, and so I don't think it's gonna win Game of the Year, but I really do hope it wins Indie Game of the Year, because it should. Hey there, sorry to interrupt in the middle of the video. I just wanted to let you know that I recorded this back in November of 2023, and it is now March of 2024. So of course, the Game Awards have already happened. And Sea of Stars did win, so I'm actually very happy about that. That fills my heart with so much joy. And I hope more people played it because of that. And if you haven't heard of it and you didn't play it yet, I hope you check it out after this video. So anyways, back to the video. It was fantastic, it was wonderful. And again, this wasn't to convince you to play it or to like try and say, oh, this is the greatest game. I just really wanted to talk about this game because I am seeing almost no one talk about it. And it is such a beautiful, such a fun experience, and I loved it from beginning to end. And really, I wanted to bring Sea of Stars to more people's attention, along with the studio Sabotage, who made it. You guys did a great job, and I just wanted to let you guys at Sabotage know thank you for that wonderful experience, and I can't wait to see what you guys do next. Hey guys, this is Post Video Zaggard. I just want to say thank you for watching to the end. That really helps a lot. If you want to help some more, click that like button. That helps boost us in the algorithm. Click that subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this or the other random stuff I post here when I have a whim to post it and record and edit and all that stuff. Thanks for bearing with me. And remember, don't believe in yourself. Believe in me, who believes in you.